The Marvel Universe is always evolving, but these newest villains are rewriting the rules. From cosmic threats to sinister masterminds, they're shaking up the status quo and forcing our favorite heroes to face challenges like never before. Here are the newest Marvel villains that will change everything. Number 10, Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom hasn't appeared in the MCU yet, only a couple more years, but fans are incredibly excited about the recent news of Robert Downey Jr. returning to play Doom. How is this even gonna work? I have so many questions. Doom is a perfect combination of intelligence, magic, and political power, making him the biggest threat to the multiverse. Now the big question here is, why Robert Downey Jr.? Are they going to make him some version of Tony Stark from the multiverse? Or is Downey playing a new character entirely, similar to how Josh Brolin went from Cable to Thanos? It's possible. Doom's ability to outthink and outmaneuver even the most powerful characters ensures that by the end of Avengers Doomsday, we're confident he'll leave a lasting impact on the MCU. How? That's the big question. Fans are eagerly awaiting his introduction, and if Marvel does justice to the character, Doom could easily become the franchise's most iconic villain. Number 9. Hexfinder. Hexfinder made her first appearance in Scarlet Witch Volume 3, Issue 7 back in 2023, and she's already proving to be one of Wanda Maximoff's most formidable foes. A witch hunter from another dimension. Need I say more, people? Hexfinder is on a mission to eliminate magic wherever she finds it. Her ability to counter chaos magic makes her an especially dangerous opponent for Wanda, forcing the Scarlet Witch to confront the darker aspects of her powers. Now what sets Hexfinder apart is her unwavering conviction. Right? She truly believes that she's doing the right thing by eradicating any and all magic. This of course adds depth to all of their battles, making them more than just physical confrontations. Hexfinder challenges Wanda to not only defend herself, but also to justify her place in the magical world. Number 8. Haymaker. Haymaker made his debut in Captain America: Symbol of Truth back in 2022, and he's quickly become a standout antagonist. I mean, as a hulking, superhuman enforcer, Haymaker isn't just about brute strength, he's actually about making a statement. Yeah, we love it, a man with a message. His clashes with Sam Wilson's Captain America are deeply symbolic, representing the challenges that Sam faces as he steps into one of the most iconic superhero roles in history. Haymaker's raw power forces Sam to dig deep, both physically and mentally, in order to prove why he deserves to carry the shield. While Haymaker's origins remain a mystery, his potential to grow into a more nuanced and of course a reoccurring villain makes him a fascinating addition to Marvel's lineup. Number 7. Rabble. Rabble burst onto the scene in Miles Morales' Spider-Man Volume 2 back in 2022, and he brings a deeply personal grudge against our young hero. He's a tech-savvy villain who's a pro in making drones and gadgets, all that fun stuff, and Rabble stands out for a strategy of attacking Miles where it hurts the most, and that means, you guessed it, his loved ones. Her motivation also stems from a feeling of injustice, believing that Miles has taken opportunities that she actually deserved in the first place. We love it, a little grudge. This personal vendetta gives their clashes an emotional weight that's honestly quite rare in superhero stories. Rabble forces Miles to question his responsibility as a hero and the unintended consequences of his actions. Her calculated approach and ability to outmaneuver Spider-Man at every turn, of course, makes her one of the most dangerous villains that Miles has ever faced. Victor Timely. Victor Timely was introduced in Loki Season 2 only a couple years ago, and he's one of the most intriguing variations of Kang the Conqueror. Unlike the other more overtly menacing Kang variants, throwing apples up and down, doing monologues, this Victor is different. He's actually a quiet inventor that operates in the early 20th century, but don't let his unassuming demeanor fool you, okay? He's still a villain. Victor's mind is as sharp as any Kang, and his connection to the larger multiverse story of course makes him that much more powerful. His story is a fascinating mix of subtlety and inevitability. When he starts as a small player, his presence has these massive implications for the MCU's future. And it's kind of weird to watch. It's slowly playing out and you know it's going to be a big deal, but he's so calm, and dare I say it's kind of a fun scene with him. Victor's ability to shape time and his links to Kang's dynasty ensure that he's not just another variant, he's actually a crucial piece in a much larger puzzle, and fans are eagerly awaiting to see how this puzzle looks. I mean, is Jonathan Majors cancelled? Is he not cancelled? Are we going to see that story finish up? Did I watch an entire season of a TV show for no reason, guys? Number 5. Samurai Venom. Takemoto Tatsuya was introduced in Venomverse in 2023, and it's one of the most unique hosts that the Venom symbiote has ever bonded with. As a skilled samurai, how cool, Takemoto brings his disciplined, honorable approach to wielding the symbiote's chaotic powers. This dynamic of course creates a fascinating tension between Venom's wild tendencies and Takemoto's controlled strategic mindset. It's fun to read. Unlike many hosts who struggle to contain the symbiote's influence, heroines, Takamoto uses his training to maintain a balance, making him honestly a precise force on the battlefield. It's actually quite terrifying. His story blends ancient Japanese traditions with the alien power of the symbiote, offering a fresh perspective on what Venom can truly become. Takamoto's potential for growth as both a character and a rival to other Marvel heroes is immense, and fans are eager to see where his journey will take him, hopefully to the big screen. Number 4. The Ashen Combine. The Ashen Combine is a terrifying group of cosmic villains introduced in Avengers Volume 8. This happened during Jed MacKay's run. Now each member embodies a unique aspect of destruction, such as Idol, who drains hope and joy, sounds fun. Meridian is a relentless conqueror who leaves planets in ruins, also great. Deadpool's Echo is a sinister and chaotic doppelganger, and Domitian is a ruthless tactician turning victories into defeats. All of them together are party poopers. They spread chaos on a universal scale, overpowering their enemies through teamwork and overwhelming force. Number 3. The Omen. The Omen is a dark entity introduced in Scarlet Witch Volume 3. Now, as a being of pure chaos, the Omen seeks to disrupt the balance of the magical world, making it a direct threat to Wanda Maximoff, of course, and other magic users. Its reality-warping powers are on a cosmic scale, putting it in the same league as Marvel's most powerful villains. The Omen's mysterious origins and sheer destructive potential make it a fascinating antagonist, and its battles with Wanda do push her to explore the full extent of her powers, which, of course, we love to see. The Omen is more than just a villain, it's a force of nature that embodies the dangers of unchecked magic. Imagine this in Harry Potter, it'd be over in 2 movies. Number 2. Null. Null, the god of the symbiotes, was introduced in Venom Volume 4 back in 2020, and they quickly became one of Marvel's most terrifying cosmic villains. Now, as the creator of the symbiotes, what a brag, Null wields unimaginable power and commands legions of symbiote soldiers. His arrival during the King in Black event plunged the Marvel Universe into darkness and forcing Earth's heroes to unite against this seemingly unstoppable foe. Null's ancient connection to the symbiotes and his role in shaping their history makes him one of the most compelling villains in recent Marvel history. Again, I hope we see this guy on the big screen. We thought we were for a bit there in Venom, and they teased it and then it never happened. Classic. Number 1. The Maker. The Maker is Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe, aka Earth 1610, but of course with a darker twist. Unlike his heroic Earth 616 counterpart, the Maker is a genius whose quest for knowledge turned into this lust for power. After surviving the collapse of his universe, he now manipulates reality for his own gain. Now, the Maker's intellect is terrifying. He's outsmarted heroes like Spider-Man and the Avengers, crafting all this gear and making all these schemes that challenge the fabric of reality. His obsession with perfection often includes cruel experiments and cold calculations, making him a dangerous adversary to pretty much everyone. Recent events like his role in the Venom comics and the multiverse storylines hint that the Maker's plans are far from over. His unique connection to Reed Richards and the multiverse make him a villain with endless potential for chaos, and that's why I had to include the Maker on this list. I feel like the Maker will have an appearance in the MCU in the next couple years. I'm calling it right now, the Maker is going to be in Secret Wars. You heard it here first.
Number 10, Mr. Sinister. When it comes to some of the most fearsome villains out there, one of the top ones I think of often is, of course, Mr. Sinister. I know this might seem odd when you consider that he recently was defeated during Sins of Sinister and is also known for being just a mad scientist, but Mr. Sinister is also one of those characters whose brilliance and ruthlessness combined make him one of the most capable villains you have ever seen. Sure, he may have a sense of playfulness and may sometimes seem ridiculous on the page in regards to how fixated he is on his love of capes and how he deals with his own clones so dismissively, but don't let that fool you. Sinister is not someone you would want to go up against. While he was defeated during the events of Sins of Sinister, he also did succeed in completely rewriting all of reality in that event. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button? It really does help us out. Number 9, Mojo. Mojo is definitely a creeper, although you probably wouldn't be too worried about him considering how ridiculous he might appear. He also looks like his range might not be as deadly, as I always see him like hooked up to stuff, and I've always wondered what kind of reach that gives him, if any, like if he was chasing you. It seems more than likely that I wouldn't have to run too far to escape him is all I'm saying. Unless he has like, I don't know, endless extension cords lying around. There is also the fact that he tends to remain within the Mojoverse, but then again, he is so fixated on securing his ratings that there is no low, too low for him. So if you end up there, and more importantly, if your performance didn't impress him too much, I'd be very concerned for your safety. Mojo is actually about as terrifying as he physically appears to be, I would say. Number 8, Madeline Pryor, aka the Goblin Queen. Madeline Pryor lately has been more operating as a hero, or at the very least as an anti-hero in the comics, but for far longer, she was known as a villain, so I'm gonna count her for this list as she's only recently changed colors. She is known for being a clone of Jean Grey, which is why I think a lot of folks underestimate her. But she deserves to be respected when you consider that she, being a clone of someone as powerful as Jean Grey, means that she also has insane power levels as a result. She's as powerful, if not, sometimes I would say she's more powerful because she's willing to push it a little harder. Not only that, but she doesn't seem to possess the same level of compassion or empathy when she's acting as a villain. Maddie has also long had a tie to the realm of demons and limbo, initially teaming up with them during the first Inferno fight and currently acting as their queen as ruler of limbo, because that's what she do now. Number 7, Sandman. Sandman might seem like a lame villain because of his name and his appearance somewhat, but in reality, just being a bunch of sand is actually more deadly than it would seem. Sand can be super powerful after all. It can erode almost anything given enough time. It can mess you up both externally and if it gets inside your body, through your nose, your ears. I mean, it could really mess you up from the inside, especially if, like Sandman, that sand of course was sentient. So Sandman can be much greater of a threat than most people might initially think or give him credit for. Honestly, I'm creeped out just thinking about it because sand's creepy. It gets everywhere. Number 6, MODOK. MODOK is often considered to be a butt of many people's jokes in the comics. He's a villain who honestly looks ridiculous, and while there may have been a time when he was terrifying on paper, he has only become more and more ridiculous in the way he's portrayed and in his appearance, I would say, as time has progressed. I mean, he's really just a giant floating head with like little arms and little legs. His appearance in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania pretty much summed up how most readers likely view MODOK. But at the end of the day, MODOK is still a genius, and we've seen explorations of his character, especially in alternate realities, where he's been one of the most terrifying villains around. Ultimate Universe MODOK, I'm looking at you. Straight up nightmare fuel. Number 5, Donald Pierce. Donald Pierce is one of those villains that I simply always forget exists. He was huge in the 80s and 90s, but since then has more fallen by the wayside. Although he did reappear more recently in the comics as the ambassador to Madripoor and a member of the powerful mutant hate group Homines Verendi. However, for much of the modern age, I would say he hasn't really been as prominent. Donald Pierce, however, is a master of technology, specifically cybernetics. This has both allowed him to become one of the most terrifying and also create some especially terrifying foes for the X-Men to come up against over the course of his history as a character. He also fits perfectly within a modern era where more and more of the narrative becomes less about humans versus mutants and more mutants and humanity versus AI in the comics, and also in real life, maybe. Number 4, Madame Mask. Look, all I'm going to say is that Hawkeye thought it would be a good idea to underestimate Madame Mask, and it didn't necessarily work out great for her. Oh yeah, we aren't talking about Clint Barton's Hawkeye here, but instead Kate Bishop's Hawkeye, who is one of the main heroes who has faced off with and fought against Madame Mask. Although she's also acted as a pretty prominent antagonist and love interest at times for another major hero, Iron Man. Madame Mask is powerful and obsessive to a fault. She's not someone you'd want either as your villain or even as your ex, as she has had an extremely hard time letting go of grudges. And if you wrong her or she perceived that you wronged her, she will literally destroy your entire life, or attempt to do so, in an effort to just simply get even with you. Number 3, Azazel. Azazel is often thought of as a bit of a goofy villain. This is usually because of his wedged in there kind of connection to characters like Nightcrawler, and the fact that he's a devil wannabe. He isn't actually the devil, or at least it doesn't seem like he really is, but that doesn't stop him from claiming that he's literally sane. Azazel basically sometimes feels like a Mephisto wannabe. But on the other hand, he did at one point threaten to break free of his prison and wreak havoc on Earth by doing one of the most dastardly things ever, attempting to sacrifice his own offspring, only really even ever having them to use them as a bridge to the plane of Earth, to the earthly realm, so that he might become free from the Brimstone dimension. And like, he almost succeeded in that, so you know. Number 2, Taskmaster. Simply put, Taskmaster just does not get a lot of love in the comics, or outside of the comics even. He isn't exactly a straight up villain, but he has been known to act villainous on occasion. He's kinda more neutral, but he's definitely been a bad guy before. In fact, I'd say he's probably more a bad guy than a good guy when we're reading stories about him. In all fairness, it just depends on who he's working for as to if he could be considered bad or not bad. He's really just a mercenary, but if he happens to be working for the bad guys, I would say watch out. Tony Masters has photographic reflexes, which means he is very hard to defeat in a fight. This is because he can learn almost any fighting style just by watching it, which makes him immediately able to execute that fighting style and oftentimes master it. He can also learn and pick up skills this way, and it means he can use a lot of our heroes' own moves against them, at least when it comes to straight up fisticuffs and, you know, non-powered combat moves. So long as he's capable of physically doing whatever they did, he can do that. So obviously, if you are a hero that can fly or, you know, like control the weather, that's not something Tony can just like pick up and do. But anything you can do that he's physically capable of, he can probably do better. Number 1, Nanny and Orphan Maker. Nanny and Orphan Maker, not really considered to be major villains or anything, I would say right now, due to the fact that the last appearance I saw of them, they were actually working towards finding their own place together as heroes as part of the Hellions team, tragically sent to the pit after that series as a result of Orphan Maker's behavior, and then Nanny was like, I'll go with Orphan Maker. Oh, this is very sad. But at the same time, they have been villains in the past, and even throughout their time, I would say on the Hellions, Nanny especially, made some questionable choices. Though I would say with both of these characters, for the most part, their hearts, at least, seem to be in the right place. Most of the time. People underestimate them because they are both kind of goofy individually and even together. But Orphan Maker literally is so powerful that he has to wear a containment suit because of how destructive his mysterious mutant powers are. Like, they could apparently destroy the world. That's how powerful he is. And Nanny can influence minds with her powers and her pixie dust. She also has managed to revert adult mutants to their once child form or their child mindset. So like physically and mentally, which is wild.
First up, the one and only Red Skull, a villain so iconic, so malevolent that he's transcended mere comic book pages to become a symbol of pure evil. Hitting the scene in 1941, can you believe it? 1941, this Nazi nightmare was giving Captain America grief before it was even fashionable to punch Nazis. Originally a regular run-of-the-mill horrible person named Johann Schmidt, his depravity was so potent, so palpable, that he was taken under the wing of Adolf Hitler himself and personally trained to be the ultimate weapon of terror. Unlike some villains with flashy powers, the Red Skull's true weapons were his genius-level intellect, his mastery of strategy that allowed him to manipulate events from behind the scenes, and a brutal hand-to-hand combat proficiency honed through years of ruthless training. He may not have had inherent super strength, but his scarred face, a horrifying visage that mirrored the monster within, and his infamous dust of death, a chemical weapon that could kill in seconds, leaving its victims with a gruesome skull-like rictus, were more than enough to cement his terrifying legacy. And as if that wasn't enough, let's not forget that this embodiment of evil once fused his mind with the pacifist and noble Charles Xavier, leader of the X-Men, granting him powerful psychic abilities for a time, a truly chilling combination of ideological opposites. Next, let's talk about tentacles. We're diving into the twisted genius of Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock, as he's affectionately known to his enemies. This multi-limbed menace smashed into the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man #3 in 1963, forever changing the wall-crawler's life. Before his descent into villainy, Doc Ock was Otto Octavius, a brilliant and respected nuclear physicist, a man at the forefront of scientific innovation. Tragically, a catastrophic lab accident, a blinding flash of radiation, fused 4 powerful experimental robotic arms to his body, forever altering his physical form and, more insidiously, warping his once brilliant mind. These weren't just any robotic appendages. These highly advanced prehensile tentacles were controlled directly by his thoughts, granting him extraordinary super strength, unparalleled agility, and the ability to manipulate objects with incredible precision. Imagine the dexterity. It's said he can even use them to perform delicate tasks, even while also using them to hold a building up. And here's a fun fact to file away. Dr. Octopus holds the distinction of being the very first villain to ever hand Spider-Man a true defeat in combat. Can you picture that on your supervillain resume? Defeating Spider-Man. It instantly solidified his place as one of the web slinger's most formidable and enduring foes. Now let's dig deep, really deep, for a villain who prefers the dimly lit tunnels and echoing caverns far beneath our feet, the Mole Man. This subterranean schemer actually holds the unique honor of being the very first villain the Fantastic Four ever faced, making his debut in the groundbreaking Fantastic Four #1 all the way back in 1961. That's right, he predates almost every other major Marvel villain. Before he became the ruler of the underworld, the Mole Man was a brilliant, if somewhat eccentric scientist, shunned and ridiculed by the surface world for his appearance and unconventional theories. Driven to the fringes of society, he embarked on a perilous journey to the Earth's core, where he stumbled upon the hidden, breathtaking realm of Subterranea. In this subterranean wonderland, he found not only refuge, but also a kingdom, becoming the undisputed ruler of the Moloids, a race of small, pale, subterranean humanoids who consider him their leader. He might not have flashy superpowers like super strength or flight, but the Mole Man is a master strategist, utilizing his knowledge of advanced to forgotten technology and his command over the monstrous creatures that dwell in the depths to constantly plot and scheme against the surface world he feels rejected him. Plus, who can forget his signature radar sense, a unique ability that allows him to navigate and perceive his surroundings in the pitch-black darkness of his underground domain. How about a villain who proves that true power comes not from brute strength, but from a razor-sharp intellect? We're talking about the Mad Thinker, a moniker that perfectly encapsulates his formidable mental prowess. First appearing in Fantastic Four #15 in 1962, this guy is a strategic mastermind, a human computer with an intellect so advanced it borders on the preternatural. He might not be able to throw a punch or withstand a physical assault, but don't let that fool you. The Mad Thinker is as dangerous as they come. His mind is his weapon, and he wields it with terrifying precision. He's a master inventor, crafting deadly and intricate gadgets designed to exploit the weaknesses of his foes. But his true power lies in his unparalleled ability to calculate probabilities, to analyze his opponent's every move, and predict their actions with uncanny accuracy. He can outmaneuver almost any hero, not with super speed, but with cold, hard logic, turning their strengths against them. He is a chess master playing with lives, always several steps ahead, making him a truly formidable foe, even for teams as powerful as the Fantastic Four. Next up, we've got a villain who embodies the perfect fusion of ancient mysticism and cutting-edge technology. The Mandarin, this iconic arch-enemy of Iron Man, first graced the pages of Tales of Suspense #50 in 1964, instantly establishing himself as a force to be reckoned with. The Mandarin is no ordinary foe. He's a scientific genius on par with Tony Stark himself, and a martial arts master whose skills are virtually unmatched in the Marvel Universe. But his true power, the source of his fearsome reputation, lies in the 10 rings he wears, each one an artifact of incredible power, each granting him a unique and devastating ability. We're talking about power rings, ancient and probably alien in origin, that allow him to unleash devastating ice blasts, control the very forces of electromagnetism, project intense heat and concussive force, manipulate light to create illusions, and even most terrifyingly, disintegrate matter at the atomic level. With this arsenal at his fingertips, the Mandarin is a walking arsenal, a one-man army capable of challenging even the most powerful of heroes, making him a truly legendary adversary in the annals of Marvel villainy. Let's add another star-spangled foe to the mix, a villain whose name is synonymous with treachery and cruelty, the original Baron Zemo. Though his first chronological appearance in comics was in The Avengers #4 in 1964, his story was cleverly retroactively woven into the tapestry of World War II, making him a contemporary and bitter enemy of Captain America during the war. This wasn't just any Zemo. This was Heinrich Zemo, the patriarch of the infamous Zemo lineage, a brilliant and utterly ruthless Nazi scientist whose intellect was matched only by his depravity. He was a master inventor, responsible for creating some of the most terrifying weapons in the Nazi arsenal. But he is best known, perhaps, for his infamous Adhesive X, a super adhesive so incredibly strong, so incredibly potent, that it was virtually inescapable once applied. This seemingly simple invention proved to be one of the most most effective and frustrating weapons ever used against the forces of good. Trapped by Adhesive X, even the strongest heroes found themselves helpless, stuck fast, and unable to break free, a testament to Zemo's twisted genius and a chilling reminder of his villainous legacy. Over the years, he was a constant thorn in Captain America's side. And how about a villain who's truly shocking? We're talking about Electro. In The Amazing Spider-Man number 9 in 1964, Max Dillon, your average electrical lineman, was struck by lightning, transforming him into a living power conductor. He can shoot lightning bolts, control electrical appliances, and even travel through power lines. He's a classic Spider-Man foe with a truly electrifying power set. Time for a time-twisting terror. Kang the Conqueror, or should we say Ramatut, showed up in 1963, first as a pharaoh and later in his Kong persona. This descendant of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic himself, travels through time in battle armor, conquering eras. He's a genius with tech that lets him erase people from time itself. Oh, and he has tons of alternate versions like Immortus and Iron Lad. Talk about complicated things. Ready for creepy? Mr. Sinister slithered into the Uncanny X-Men number 212 in 1986. Originally Nathaniel Essex, a Victorian scientist obsessed with genetics, he was transformed by Apocalypse into the ageless, power-absorbing Mr. Sinister. He's got shape-shifting, telepathy, telekinesis, a healing factor, and can steal powers. And get this, he was created by a child mutant, pure nightmare fuel. Last but not least, the bug-eyed ruler of the negative zone, Annihilus. This cosmic creepy crawly debuted in Fantastic Four Annual number 6 in 1968. He's got super strength, flight, and the cosmic control rod, which lets him manipulate cosmic energy and makes him virtually immortal. He's a recurring Fantastic Four foe and even led the massive Annihilation event. This is one bug you don't want to step on.
Starting us off in at number 10, Terrax. Originally known as Tyros, he started as a dictator of Landlac in a solar system around 80,000 light years from Earth. He maintained control using his power over rock. In essence, this guy was a more advanced earthbender, being able to animate figures out of stone that would patrol the kingdom, maintaining his order and rule. However, this wouldn't last forever, since Galactus was seeking a new herald to guide him towards his next dinner buffet. Galactus had also finally learned that you shouldn't have good guys find you worlds to destroy. So when the Fantastic Four asked Galactus for help against the Sphinx, his only condition to help was if the Fantastic Four subdued Tyros for him. They did, and Tyros was exposed to the cosmic power of Galactus and turned him into Terrax the Tamer. His control over stone was improved tenfold, and he could nearly control a whole planet of stone at once. In addition to this, he was granted the Cosmic Axe, which was capable of generating waves of cosmic force. Terrax was nuts, even beginning to wipe out worlds before Galactus got there, even at times defying Galactus' wishes, which is pretty ballsy if you ask me. I mean, like, that's what you get for hiring a bad guy though, I guess.
Number 9, Umar. Umar is the sister of Dormammu and is basically on a similar level to her brother. She has a great knowledge of magical lore which she can use to do a vast number of things. She also is capable of teleportation and time travel. And you know how I feel about teleporters, they are pretty OP in my opinion. Same basically with any person, hero or villain who can manipulate time. Umar often allies herself with her brother even though he hasn't always treated her great. I don't think Dormammu will be winning any Brother of the Year awards is all I'm saying. She has also been shown to be more powerful than Doctor Strange even, on occasion. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list as much as I love all of the things that are cosmic, cosmic things, they're so great, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I think that was a sentence that made sense.
And at 8, Ego. Introduced in Thor number 132 in 1966, Ego was created when a mysterious being known as the Stranger visited his home star in order to conduct an experiment. A scientist by the name of Egros started work on a way to save his race from the nova that experiment had left inevitable. The night of the explosion, Egros had his race move into the bunkers he had set up at the planet's core, but the star exploded sooner than they had planned. So in an attempt to save his own life, he tried to reach the underground vault, but failed. However, Egros was merged with every living thing destroyed by that sun, including his people. This created Ego the Living Planet. Considering how this guy is literally a living planet, I think it's safe to say why he's on this list, especially when he was able to hold his own against Galactus. Yeah, a few months after a battle with Thor, Galactus discovered Ego and instantly attacked. Understandably. Ego in his defense created a shield of solid clouds and began to fight back, attempting to strangle Galactus with tentacles. I feel like I've seen that video before. Either way, anyone able to hold their own against Galactus is well deserving to be on this list.
Number 7. Dormammu. Dormammu recently actually came out on top against Ego in a battle, and in certain conditions possesses limitless power. Dormammu is part mystical and part cosmic in terms of what kind of villain he is, but make no mistake that he is not out of his element in outer space at all. Dormammu has battled against Odin and has even threatened to end the Celestials before, who are like super cosmic, claiming that he will be the one to destroy the extremely powerful beings. I think we're still waiting for that to happen, but I believe. Not only has Dormammu threatened the existence of Earth before, like we saw in the MCU, but in the comics he has threatened the entire universe and even entire reality of Earth 616 before. So that's the kind of level that he's generally on. There's like other villains, and then there's Dormammu.
And at 6, Michael Korvac. Being first introduced in Giant Size Defenders number 3 in 1975, Michael Korvac's father was killed due to events surrounding his birth in 2977. He was raised by his mother, but when the solar system he lived in on Earth 691 and its colonies became the target for the Brotherhood of Badoon, Michael became a traitor and helped the Brotherhood. However, after a few moments of hesitation later on, he was cut in half and fused with his computer by the Brotherhood, turning him into basically a cyborg. But this seemed to do more harm than good for the Brotherhood, since now Korvac was dead set on killing those who did this to him, at least until the Grandmaster teleported him to battle Doctor Strange and the Defenders. Korvac intentionally lost the battle and instead siphoned some of the Grandmaster's power using his new cybernetic abilities, making him even more powerful than before. Eventually, this guy ended up impersonating Kang the Conqueror and the Watcher, and with his ability to siphon power from others, this makes him one of the scariest villains in the Marvel Universe, at least if he was smart about it and didn't go and get himself killed multiple times.
Number 5. The Builders. The Builders ended up being an insanely massive threat when they first showed up on the scene. They were destroyers of worlds, flying around completely wiping out all life on planets, and threatening some of the greatest empires in the cosmos. Although, originally they were kind of more like creators of life and planets, but I digress. In order to defeat the Builders, thought to be the oldest race of beings in the universe, Earth's heroes were compelled to join forces with the galaxy's other superpowers, including the Shi'ar Empire, the Kree, the Skrulls, Spartax, and more. It took an intergalactic army to even stand a chance against the Builders, and even then, that chance initially seemed pretty bleak, pretty slim. Captain Universe, who is said to have created the Builders, joined the fight against them, and eventually all worlds rose up and united, and were able to defeat them. Later on, an even greater cosmic threat, the Beyonders, who we really need to talk about on a part 2 for this list actually, destroyed the Builders. The Beyonders are pretty crazy.
Getting close to the end, and in number 4, Amatsu Mikaboshi. To the Shinto religion in Japan, Amatsu Mikaboshi is the god of evil, chaos, and the stars, a primordial being who was imprisoned in the Shinto underworld, known as Yomi, for all eternity. Fun. First introduced in Thor Blood Oath number 6 in 2006, this guy is an absolute beast. Just look at him. This thing is my sleep paralysis demon. Mikaboshi fought against the Demogorge for control of literally the universe, and that's not even a joke. This guy was going to wipe out an entire race of interdimensional beings known as the Kami, just to get a sword known as the Grass Cutter. Yeah, the Grass Cutter was a sword of such great power it apparently was worth wiping out an entire race of people. Dude, just get a lawnmower. Mikaboshi existed before the universe did, before the Big Bang, back when time didn't exist and when the universe was only darkness. He can take on anyone from Thor to even Olympian gods by using his extreme arsenal of powers like shape-shifting, bending matter, mystical energy blasts, you name it, this guy can probably do it, including absorbing the entire multiverse, because he nearly did that as well. He was less than 2% away, actually. So close.
Number 3. Magus. Magus is the evil version of Adam Warlock, and we all know how powerful Adam Warlock is. Magus, being his dark equivalent, is extremely dangerous and also has a willing army at his disposal in his own church that he created, the Universal Church of Truth, which isn't really as nice as it sounds at all. They would harshly purify any planets who refused to accept their offer to join them, exterminating all who resisted. Pretty awful stuff. Being that Magus is the negative side of Adam Warlock, he possesses all of his abilities and powers.
Penultimately, in at number 2, Thanos. I'm sure we all know about the Mad Titan, especially thanks to the MCU, but while Thanos' MCU counterpart was portrayed as a man wanting to help a dying universe, at least kind of, the comic version of Thanos had a much simpler objective: impress death! Thanos is the definition of insane, doing whatever it takes to impress Death and gain her affection, and this coupled with an insatiable hunger for power and control makes him quite the dom. From the Cosmic Cube to the Infinity Gems, Thanos' lust for power is never satiated, but even so, he doesn't want to destroy everything. I guess since if he did, there would be nothing left to rule, and no more death to impress his mistress. This causes him to even at times join forces with heroes when there's a bigger threat than himself, teaming up with Adam Warlock to stop Magus and the Goddess, and teaming up with the Guardians to stop the invasion of the Cancerverse, just to name a couple. So while he could kill most of us in a snap, at least we know some of us would survive, so that he could then dom us.
Number 1. Galactus. Galactus is obviously one of the greatest and most constant cosmic threats that the universe faces. He is a devourer of worlds whose bottomless hunger is what makes him such a feared antagonist, even though really Galactus himself isn't generally pretty neutral without his hunger. In fact, he's even been a force of good on a few occasions. Still, whichever side he's on at the time, which let's be honest, usually is considered to be the more villainous side simply because he needs to destroy worlds to continue surviving, he is not a villain you'd want to come up against, as not only do you have to face him, a massive cosmic giant wielding the extraordinary power cosmic, but you also usually have to deal with his heralds, who themselves can be a lot to handle, and also have a little bit of power cosmic.
Coming in at number 10 is Kang the Conqueror. Kang is a little bit of an interesting pick for this list, as he totally can be stopped and has been multiple times. Thanks to the advanced time period he comes from though, Nathaniel Richards has an increased lifespan, making him look 40 when he's actually 7 years old. That's fine, that doesn't make him unstoppable. What makes him unstoppable is a couple of things. For starters, as most people know, Kang has a huge relationship with time. A version of this guy exists at almost all moments of the time stream, and not just one version of him, as there have been Kangs from different universes that have shown up as well. So not only can Nathaniel Richards show up at any point in the time stream in any of his numerous identities that all have their own long history, but his alternate universe versions are almost always set to make an appearance in his place. And then, on top of that, until recently, Nathaniel had the ability to transfer his consciousness to another body when he passed away. Nathaniel, Ramatut, Iron Lad, Kid Immortus, Scarlet Centurion, Immortus himself, Mr. Griffin, he who remains, whatever you want to call him, Kang the Conqueror is pretty much unstoppable. Number 9. Galactus. The being formerly known as Galen of the planet Ta lived before the modern cosmos in the previous cosmos. Galen gestated with the sentience of the universe for billions of years, transforming into the devourer of worlds, finding sustenance by ingesting entire planets, preferably those with living sentient beings that have much more energy for him to harness. Now when Galactus destroys and consumes a planet, he is sort of bringing balance to the universe, kind of like how life is given and taken away every day on Earth, which makes him an essential part of the universe. He's known for the destruction of the Skrull Empire and has attempted to devour the Earth so many freaking times, and I guess other planets for that matter too, or whatever. Galactus is also famous for his heralds such as Silver Surfer and the Cosmic Ghost Rider, and so many others, and while they are all powerful beings themselves, usually even before they gain the herald power boost, they don't hold a candle to Galactus himself. His only caveat is that Galactus's power depends on his planet's consumption, so a weakened Galactus has been taken out before, but if he eats like 4 or more planets or something, he's been able to defeat multiple mad celestials all by himself. He's powered by food, and I think pretty much all of us can understand that. Coming in at number 8, Abraxas. Abraxas is the polar opposite of the cosmic entity Eternity. So, being the opposite of Eternity, his whole reason for existing is to destroy all of the multiverse, which, I'll be honest, there are a few different characters in Marvel who exist for that reason, and funnily enough, a bunch of them are on this list. Abraxas is tied to Galactus too, because when Galactus would consume a planet, it would keep Abraxas in check. So, when Galactus is taken off the board in Galactus the Devourer, Abraxas is released and begins his path of ultimate destruction. As a cosmic entity, Abraxas' powers are essentially limitless, and his whole existence is kind of important to the universe, which means he can't really be taken out like a normal villain. So, how the heck do the heroes come out on top against this guy? Well, in Fantastic Four, 4, number 48 to 50, we learned of an incredibly powerful weapon called the Ultimate Nullifier. It was used back then to threaten Galactus and stop him from destroying our Earth. Now the heroes, specifically Reed Richards, ended up using the Ultimate Nullifier to essentially rewrite reality, destroying reality and remaking it so that Abraxas just never existed. That's the route we had to go to here. Kinda makes you wonder why Marvel would even write such a powerful villain in the first place, but if you're enjoying this list so far, well, we've got a ton more like it on our channel that you should definitely subscribe to. Or you could just give a thumbs up to this video, that's also helpful. Thanks. Number 7, Mephisto. Within the Marvel Universe, Mephisto is, for all intents and purposes, the devil. He isn't actually. Technically, he is a demonic hell lord who rules over his own hell-like dimension and enjoys stealing people's souls by tricking them, and he does that by pretending he is the actual devil, playing on people's fears, so basically, he's the devil. While Mephisto is within his dimension, which he calls hell, he is immortal, omniscient, and impossible to destroy. It's only when he ventures into other realms that he can be defeated, but doing so just kind of returns him back to his own dimension. He has been a major player in the Marvel Universe since his creation and has been either a key or supporting player for many major events. He was the Snake in the old Adam and Eve story. He was directly responsible for the creation of Ghost Rider. He's infamously erased the history of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's marriage in order to save Aunt May's life. I mean, he even popped up a hotel out of the ground in Las Vegas that manipulated the citizens and let him take their souls. He has been defeated and outmaneuvered multiple times, but he has never permanently been stopped. Number 6, the Phoenix Force. Now it's important to say the Phoenix Force is not a villain, technically. It is a cosmic entity representing all life in the Omniverse. The Phoenix Force will exist as long as there is, was, or will be life. If the Phoenix Force were to be destroyed, if that were even possible, all life would follow after it, as well as the ability for life to have begun in the first place. The Phoenix Force is just a force of nature, but it has been used as a darker force of power in the past. For example, when it inhabited Jean Grey during the Dark Phoenix Saga. It was at this time the entity was a villain, using Jean's insane levels of psychic power, which it then amplified to godlike levels. With this entity inhabiting her body, Jean and the Phoenix destroyed an entire solar system and attacked her fellow X-Men. Jean had to actually bring her own end just to stop what was happening, and when the Phoenix regained its memories of all the evil it had done, it brought Jean back to life to help make things a little better. And that's not the only time. There was the whole X-Men versus Avengers thing, and there was that time that Thane, Thanos' son, had the Phoenix Force. Almost every time the power of the Phoenix Force comes up, it usually corrupts its bearer and makes like a big stink. Like a huge stink. Big old fart. Number 5, Dormammu. Most fans of Doctor Strange know Dormammu. This being composed of pure magic energy rules the dark dimension and spends most of his time taking over other realities as he finds them. He's essentially immortal and capable of wielding godly power over magic, the dead, souls, and pretty much anything, really. When he is in our reality, he can be thwarted and returned to his own, usually by the Sorcerer Supreme, but within the dark dimension, he reigns supreme and cannot be taken down, like, at all. Using his vast magical abilities and the influence of his power, he is constantly trying to invade our reality, and even when he is banished back or he is stopped, he always comes back eventually, and he has been doing this for millennia. Number 4, the Beyonder. The Beyonder is a singular entity with no duplicate versions of himself in other universes, similar to the Phoenix Force. And also a lot like the Phoenix Force, Beyonder is basically like a baby in that he is a younger member of a race called the Beyonders that are a near omnipotent alien race from a dimension outside of the multiverse. He is himself basically a whole universe. It's really hard to explain, but as he observes Earth and the Marvel Universe and the various races, he gets a little curious, and the Beyonder decides to study and analyze life and humanity, good and evil and conflict, and to that purpose he pits Earth's mightiest heroes and villains against each other in the Secret Wars. Now, he did this by destroying an entire system of planets and creating Battleworld from the remains and from parts of Earth, so that's one level of power right there. Beyonder's powers surpass that of Eternity and the Living Tribunal, but that has been retconned recently. And he is capable of manipulating reality to his will, being able to pretty much do whatever he wants and then grant himself any power he wants. It was actually a huge treat though last year in the Defenders Beyond story when we learned that the Beyonder and his race were actually still in existence, and he was now an adult existing with the rest of the adult Beyonders outside of the multiverse and being all levels of wildly insanely powerful. There's a lot I skimmed over here to make it less confusing, but you should just go read all the Secret Wars if you want to see how crazy these beings actually are. Number 3, Sidorak. Sidorak, also known as the Destroyer, is an incredibly powerful extra-dimensional being who was worshipped as a god and as a demon by the primitive humans of Earth until he was banished back to the Crimson Cosmos, which is where he comes from. Now, as the Destroyer, Sidorak's main goal is to just cause destruction and raise destructive power. Simple as that. To do this though, from the Crimson Cosmos, and also to win a wager with 8 other godlike deities like himself, he created the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, which allows him to select a person to be his avatar, enhancing them to become the indestructible and immortal Juggernaut, which kinda gives us 2 different versions of Unstoppable all wrapped up into one package. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. That's for you. As the Juggernaut is essentially a physically unstoppable force of kinetic energy, unless you're the Hulk, I guess, then you can stop him. I don't know why. Anyways, Sidorak is such a powerful and unstoppable godlike entity that you will even hear magic users invoking his name to cast some of their strongest spells. For example, the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Number 2, the Chaos King. While he is relatively obscure, he is nothing to scoff at. Amatsu Mikobashi, first appearing in Thor Blood Oath number 6 in 2006, was mistaken as the Japanese god of chaos and evil, but in actuality, he was an aspect of the cosmic being Oblivion. Now, Mikobashi ruled and thrived over the Earth when it was nothing more than a formless void of primordial darkness. And as such, his goal now is to put an end to creation and bring about a new age of chaos and void and darkness. He is a primordial being who was imprisoned in Yomi, which is the Shinto underworld, which is where he remained for centuries, accruing an army of Oni, which is Shinma demons, and other monsters. Now, during the events of Ares, god of war, Chaos King attacks Olympus after he defeated and controlled the Japanese pantheon of gods, and after the fall of Asgard during Ragnarok. This is what kind of kickstarts his mission in Chaos War, where he slays the Egyptian gods, Celtic gods, Shi'ar gods, gods of Zen Law. He takes out Nightmare in the Dream Dimension, destroys Mephisto, and casts Mistress Death out of hell, making her literally run away. And he releases the souls of the damned. He did all that. He has the power to defeat eternity and is practically unfazed by attacks from the likes of Zeus. God Hercules, Galactus, Silver Surfer, and Thor together could not defeat Chaos King. To win, Hercules had to literally punch him into a portal to an endless void of nothingness, and this was after he destroyed 98.76% of the entire universe. That's a lot. Number 1, Chthon. Chthon is one of the most powerful demons to ever exist. Even though he predates anything like this, of all the devil-like demons out there, including Mephisto, Chthon is the closest thing to the actual devil. He and his Ngari actually ruled the earth before the angel Lucifer attacked them, and that was before Lucifer ever rebelled against heaven and became the actual devil. Chthon himself is responsible for all the witches, werewolves, vampires, and other dark creatures, as well as being the master of the most powerful form of magic, chaos magic, which is the same stuff used by the Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch has altered all of reality with just a fraction of that magic, so yeah, it's a lot. His opposite, Oshter, is one of the 3 beings that make up the Vishanti, and they stand in direct opposition to Chthon specifically, creating the Book of Vishanti in response to Chthon's Darkhold. Other demons and dark sorcerers, including Dormammu and Mephisto, call on Chthon's name to cast some of their strongest spells, and the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, was almost corrupted and permanently taken out by Chthon's mere presence alone. He is extremely hard to bring down, and even if you manage to do so, it's only a matter of time until he comes back.
Number 10. The Skinless Man. Yeah, we'll start with the Skinless Man. That sounds pretty terrifying. Also known as Harry Pizer, the Skinless Man is a gruesome villain from Marvel's Uncanny X-Force issue 21. Once a human scientist, Pizer's body was stripped of its skin by Phantom X, leaving him with, of course, a horrifying appearance. That's obvious. But this drove him to seek revenge. Where did my skin go? Who did this? I want it back. Pizer could control and weaponize his exposed, well, everything, making him a chilling opponent. His relentless pursuit of vengeance against Phantom X and his grotesque abilities make him one of Marvel's most unsettling characters. I don't want that on the big screen anytime soon. Number 9. Mad Jim Jaspers. Mad Jim Jaspers is one of Marvel's most surreal and dangerous villains, first appearing in Daredevil's issue 7 back in 1983. Jaspers is a British politician who hides an unfathomable mutant power, reality warping on this multiversal scale. This ability makes him capable of reshaping existence itself, bending the laws of physics, and of course creating these horrifying alternate realities. One of his most notorious acts does occur in the Days of Future Past alternate timeline, where his Jaspers warp causes madness and destruction by distorting reality itself. Jaspers even makes the Fury, which is a nearly indestructible cyborg, programmed to eliminate superheroes, which ultimately becomes a major menace in the Marvel universe. Do we want this guy on screen? I mean, it would look good, but it's kind of terrifying. Number 8. Dark Beast. Dark Beast is a twisted version of our loved X-Men character Hank McCoy, and he made his first appearance in X-Men issue 295. It was part of the Age of Apocalypse storyline. See, unlike our hero Beast, Dark Beast is a villain. Obvious, that goes without saying. He's an unethical scientist from an alternate reality where his experiments on mutants led him to a more sinister path. He has been responsible for creating these horrific mutant experiments, and his most notorious act was aiding the villain Apocalypse. He would manipulate genetics and conduct these cruel experiments, all on innocent lives. Like I said, he's kind of the opposite of the guy we know and love. Number 7. Arcade. Arcade is a flamboyant villain in Marvel Comics. He first appeared in Marvel Team Up issue 65. This was back in the late 70s. He's known for his genius level engineering skills and flair for theatrics, and he builds these amusement parks to trap and then challenge superheroes. It's like a crazy Saw spin-off. These whimsical yet terrifying mazes are tailored to exploit his target's weaknesses. Now, one infamous storyline, Avengers Arena, sees Arcade orchestrate a high-stakes competition among all these young heroes. He forces them to navigate these twisted traps. While often underestimated for his eccentric style, Arcade's creative schemes make him quite the unique and, unfortunately, quite a persistent threat in Marvel's universe. Number 6. The Brood. The Brood are a terrifying alien species in Marvel Comics. It was first introduced in the Uncanny X-Men issue 155 back in the early 80s. Inspired by classic sci-fi horror, the Brood are a parasitic creatures resembling these insect reptiles, capable of infecting their hosts with eggs. I almost threw up saying that. This process transforms the host into another Brood, ultimately erasing their original personality. The Brood have targeted the X-Men multiple times, creating some of the team's most harrowing stories. One notable arc occurs in Uncanny X-Men issues 162 to 167, where the team battles both external threats and their own infection after being captured by the Brood. Wolverine's healing factor does help him resist transformation, but the storyline underscores the psychological and physical horrors that the Brood impose. The Brood's hive mentality is also controlled by Brood Queen, whose cunning and brutality makes her a formidable foe. They've also clashed with other Marvel heroes, including the Avengers and the Starjammers, spreading chaos all across the galaxy. Number 5. Annihilus. Annihilus is one of Marvel's most formidable cosmic villains, and he first appeared in Fantastic Four Annual issue 6. Hailing from the Negative Zone, Annihilus is an insect-like overlord driven by this fear of passing on and a desire to dominate all of life. It's pretty much what you don't want in a villain. His weapon is the Cosmic Control Rod, and it grants him immense power and near immortality, making him a relentless threat. In Marvel Comics, Annihilus has spearheaded devastating campaigns, most notably the Annihilation event. In this storyline, Annihilus unleashes this catastrophic invasion of the Marvel Universe, leading this horde of his insect annihilation wave. It's honestly pretty disgusting. Heroes like Nova, Silver Surfer, and Ronan the Accuser all unite to counter his ambitions, but not without staggering losses. Annihilus represents pure destruction, embodying a primal need to ensure his survival at any and all costs. His clashes with the Fantastic Four, his vendetta against Reed Richards, and his menacing presence in the Cosmic Marvel arcs have solidified him as a terrifying force. I don't think we'll see him in the Fantastic Four movie, but never say never. Number 4. Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister, whose real name is Nathaniel Essex, is one of Marvel's most sinister, pun intended, and complex villains. He first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 221, and Sinister is a brilliant geneticist from a Victorian-era England who's obsessed with evolution and genetic perfection. This drives all of his actions. His obsession took him over. Empowered by Apocalypse, he gains enhanced abilities, near immortality, and of course a twisted purpose, to manipulate all mutant genetics for his own ends. Sinister's schemes are intricately tied to the X-Men. He orchestrated the creation of Cable by manipulating Cyclops and Jean Grey's DNA, and he's been behind countless experiments that wreak havoc on mutants, specifically mutants. His uncanny ability to play the long game, combined with his cold, calculated mind, makes him truly a chilling foe. Number 3. Nightmare. Nightmare is one of Marvel's most iconic supernatural villains. We thought he was going to appear in Doctor Strange, he didn't. Then we thought he was going to appear in WandaVision, he didn't. But he first appeared in Strange Tales issue 110 back in 1963. As the ruler of the dream dimension, Nightmare feeds on the fear of those trapped in their dreams. His power comes from his victims' subconscious minds, making him a constant threat to heroes who underestimate the power of fear. Kinda like Freddy Krueger, only more powerful, dare I say? One of Nightmare's most significant adversaries is, of course, you guessed it, Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme himself. Their battles are quite legendary, with Nightmare often seeking to conquer Earth by turning dreams into tools of chaos. In the Fear Itself event, Nightmare manipulates others by exploiting their deepest fears, showcasing his unique brand of psychological warfare. Number 2. The Adversary. The Adversary's first appearance was in Uncanny X-Men issue 188. Now, the Adversary is a cosmic trickster, and he thrives on chaos and destruction. His most famous appearance is in the Fall of the Mutants arc, where he forces the X-Men to make the ultimate sacrifice to stop him. Now, as an ancient entity capable of manipulating reality itself, the Adversary has shown quite a terrifying power of unchecked chaos. His ability to twist the natural order of things and pit heroes against impossible odds does cement his place among Marvel's most enigmatic and of course terrifying villains. Number 1. The Shadow King. The Shadow King is a powerful psychic entity, a sinister force of pure evil energy, capable of controlling minds and manifesting as this terrifying, shadowy figure. Again, pun intended. His first appearance was in Uncanny X-Men issue 117, and he's most known for his battles against the X-Men, especially Professor X, whom he has a personal vendetta against. In the multiverse, he is even more dangerous, believe it or not. He's able to manipulate multiple realities. So with his deep cover over minds, he is a extremely formidable foe to anyone who faces him, often using fear and despair as his weapons. Who do we miss on our list today? Who do you want to see in the future? Comment down below, and thanks for joining us here on Top 10 Nerd. Peace.